how about them Dogs? 24-20 down on the St. Johns River. The Bulldogs got it done very much in the way that I kind of thought they would. If you watch the channel, if you watch the podcast, if you watch SEC Powers Hour on Thursday night, you know I said, don't be shocked if this thing's going to be tight at the half. Can't get tighter than tied. Hang in there, strap in tight, because it's going to be a fight. And I don't think they're going to cover. I think it's going to be closer than the experts think. Sure enough, 24-20. Now, of course, Gunner could have strolled right into the end zone there at the end to spread that out a little bit. And I'm sure he made a few people who bet the game not a whole lot, not very happy, but that's all right. I actually loved what Gunner Stockton did there at the end. And think back to the Auburn game, right? He dives into the end zone. He scores. Georgia wins. But then Kirby gets on him on the sideline. Don't ever say that they don't take coaching, because that's exactly what happened right there. You know what I mean? He remembered that ass chewing that he got at Auburn from Kirby, and he decided that he was going to just be like, you know what? I'm just going to take a knee right here. And hating Gators the way I do, right? And again, remember, every day is a great day to hate the Gators, right? But hating them the way I do, the fact that Gunner just strolled up to the goal line and stopped and looked at him for a second and then just took a knee, that's even better. That's like twisting the knife a little bit, if you know what I mean. But that's okay, because that's what rivalries are. And I love the fact that that's how it went down. So how many of y'all were out there going, oh man, here we go. Same old kind of feeling, right? Feeling all nervous. See, that's why you got to hang out with us over here. Told you, strap in, it's going to be tough. But seriously, all kudos to the defense. Finally got a stop when they needed to. Bowed their back, got the stop on fourth down. And from that point, I think everybody knew. Didn't you know? Because I felt like I knew. They got the fourth down stop, and I didn't say it. I didn't say it, so full transparency. But I started to turn to Alice and say, Kirby Death March, here it comes. And they just went right down the field after having not been able to do much there in the third quarter, in the first part of the fourth quarter. After they got that stop, they're like, oh yeah, it's about to be lights out. We're about to just end this for you, Florida. And that's exactly what they did. So couldn't be prouder of the guys with their resilience. Couldn't be prouder of the fact that they stood in there and did exactly what we all hoped they would do, which is run it to 5 straight over the Gators, which, I mean, again, you just can't beat that. I want to take a second and let's get a little look-see here. Let's go ahead and look at, have these up here for reference in case we need them, right? Let's get this stuff up here for reference so we can see it. Gunner Stockton, 20 of 29, 223, 2 touchdowns. And he could have had a rushing touchdown. So that's a pretty good day. Pretty good day. Georgia rushing, Chauncey Bowens, who I had said I hope he has a big day, had the huge 36-yard touchdown run that had to be so sweet for him, being from the state of Florida, right? Coming home this week, they put him in front of the media on Tuesday, and he's like, of course we know how big this game is. And then he goes out there and has a moment like that in this game. So happy for him, man. And kudos to Nate Frazier. He didn't break anything loose, but he ran hard all day. And it seemed like for the most part, Georgia ran the ball okay. There was a long stretch in there where they didn't get much done in the run game. And you have to give credit to Florida there, because I said their first 22, they're as good as anybody else in the league. It's just that it takes more than just a roster, right? So they put up a good fight. They got after Gunner a little bit. I think they had a sack or 2 on the day. But once again, the first half was it's just weird when you go down there. For a minute, I did feel like it was 1998 again, or 1996 maybe, right? Where things just aren't breaking their way. But at the half, I absolutely felt like Georgia was in control of the game. At no point in the first half did I feel like they were not in control. And that's because of the way Georgia played the run. I think the number was 26 yards at the half Georgia had allowed on the ground. That's why it didn't feel like the game was out of control for Georgia at all. They had one bust, which led to the touchdown directly, right? Second safety busted And there you go, touchdown. And then you have a ball that hits the receiver in the hands, not a perfect ball, but it hits him in the hands. He doesn't make the catch, tips, overthrows. Florida gets that ball, and then they managed to get a field goal out of that one. So they gave them 10 points in the first half, so it's tied. And then in the second half, Georgia comes out and do what they do most of the time. Now, there was a stretch in there, like there has been every week this season, where Georgia just seemed like they couldn't get a stop. It just didn't matter. The drive where Florida goes ahead there in the second half felt that way. And again, kudos to Jaden Ball. And that's a Georgia kid who wanted to have a good day against Georgia. He had a pretty good day, 15 for 72. But we have to give credit to Zachariah Branch today. And holding his hand in this is Gunnar Stockton, right? Gunnar is the same guy that he's been all year. Steady, protected the football, made good decisions. I mean, everything that you want Gunnar to do, he did. And his guy today was Zachariah Branch. I mean, the catch and run, great design by Bobo on that explosive to get him wide open. Gunnar puts the ball on him, and then Zach does what he's great at, which is get loose in the broken field. And that was a big game. But then he had a couple of really big catches, including one where he took a hit while he was still in the air, which absolutely should have been flagged as a defenseless player. It wasn't, should have been. So, you know, that's just one of those things that sometimes you don't understand with SEC officiating, because just moments prior, the Florida receiver had received, you know, a penalty where they said he took on the KJ Bolden hit, which it was targeting. So there's no dispute there. KJ, you have to see what you hit, and he couldn't because he hit him with the top of his head. Don't do that. There's no question about the fact that it was targeting. The question was how they referred to the receiver as a defenseless player. Okay, there's a little bit of gray area there. He tried to defend himself, which is why it wound up being helmet to helmet. But if you're going to call him defenseless, because he had already put his feet on the ground, then you have to call the one on Zachariah Branch a defenseless personal foul for a defenseless player because he was still in the air. So I'm well beyond arguing over how soft the game is, or we didn't do it that way in my day. I'm beyond that argument. It is the way it is. My only thing is, if you're going to call it, then call it, like, all the time. So either way, Zach Branch, 10 balls, 112 yards. Great day for him. I mean, there were just players all over the place who made plays for Georgia today. CJ Allen, 13 tackles, 7 solo. That's a great performance. I'm still concerned about the tackling in space. There wasn't a great deal of sure tackling in space today. And the fact that Florida was beat up at wide receiver probably didn't make Georgia look as bad as maybe they would have looked in terms of tackling in space, because all those guys are very athletic at the wide receiver position. They weren't playing. Wouldn't have made a difference in the game, I don't think, because Lagway didn't seem to play that great. But I will say that Georgia has to continue to work to improve on their tackling in space. That's just something that they're going to have to do. I was hopeful that Zach might get a chance to show something in the return game today. That didn't really happen. He had a couple of returns, but nothing really to write home about. I keep waiting for that to happen. I hope it happens. And other than the one shank today, Thorson had a good day kicking the ball for Georgia. So that was great. So on the whole, I mean, I think that the Dogs did a pretty doggone good job today in terms of what they needed to do to get the job done. Again, Gunnar Stockton, 20 of 29, 223 and 2 scores. The interception wasn't his fault. And then Chauncey Bowen, super happy for him to break off that run the way he did, which winds up being the dagger. And again, Gunnar choosing to not go into the end zone there at the end is really special. A little salt in the wound, a little twist of the knife, if you will, for the rivalry. And at the same time, the sportsman-like thing to do, the smart thing to do, because you stop right there. You just kneel the clock out. They can't get the ball back. Game over. Georgia wins. 5 straight over the hated Gators. I'll tell you, the other thing we have to talk about is the injury situation that is developing for Georgia on the defensive side of the football right here. Next week, they have to go on the road to play Mississippi State, which that game just ended I think Mississippi State pulled off the win on the road at Arkansas. So that means that they're going to be riding high coming off a win. Georgia has to go on the road. That's going to be a noon kick in Mississippi, which is 11 local. So that's going to be something to watch. The number 2 safety position has been a sore spot all year. I saw nothing today that makes me feel any more secure about that position. Doesn't mean the guys aren't playing hard. It just means that there's clearly a drop-off. KJ Bolden, who I had questions about today before he got ejected, that is the guy that's preseason All-American, preseason All-SEC, the guy who's supposed to be leading that bunch back there. But that number 2 safety position has been a sore spot. And now, Kyron Jones was out today with injury. We don't know when he's coming back. Ja'Cory Thomas was in there for him. And then, we get the Branch brother in there, Zion, because KJ leaves the game. And now I'm holding my breath every time the ball goes deep. The play that was reviewed where the ball absolutely hit the ground on the 3rd and 4, where Lagway throws the ball deep, that play is the perfect example. Ja'Cory had already had the one bust early in the game, which led directly to the touchdown. Then they let that dude get behind them on 3rd and 4. I mean, if it's a good ball, he strolls into the end zone and we're having a different discussion here. But he didn't. And, that's because Lagway was moving on the play. He was pushed out of the pocket. He throws it up deep. That's why it happened the way it did. But the fact that he was behind them is the problem. So that secondary situation with DeMello getting hurt, I haven't heard an update on that. I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's a shoulder or if it's an elbow. But either way, it looks like he's in pain. And it looks like he's probably going to miss at least a little bit of time. So is Daniel Harris still on the roster? If he is, and he is, then maybe he makes his return this week. Because, my goodness, Ellis Robinson, brother, catch the ball. Hit you in the hands. We wouldn't have had to worry about the drama with Gunner having the opportunity to take a knee if, my guy Ellis snatches that ball out of the air and puts it in the end zone, because he walks in if he catches it. So, again, good play there by the Dogs on defense. We brought the cat blitz off the corner with Aguero. DJ looks up and is like, and lets the ball go early. Ellis, the ball's right in your face, babe. Catch it. Put it in the end zone. Ball game. But regardless, Dogs hold on. But now we got Ellis Robinson. We got Dalen Everett. Daniel Harris, you would suspect, will be the first guy who's going to get the opportunity to get his way back on the field. Maybe. We'll see. I don't know. I don't have any insight on that, but that's just the way I would think it would go. But we shall see, because there are a lot of guys back there. We know that there's depth. They're just young, and most of them haven't played a whole lot. So it looks like we might be forced into a situation where that has to happen against Mississippi State, which should be a concerning factor for Georgia, because Mississippi State is going to spread you out 4 and 5 wide, and they're going to throw the ball all over the yard. So the two things that we take away from today's game: still not great tacklers in space, still have to be concerned about that defensive backfield against the pass, are both going to be tested like maybe they haven't been tested since the Tennessee game when we go to play Mississippi State next weekend. So keep that in mind. Think about that all week. Tonight, though, we get to enjoy the victory. The 5th straight time our Dogs have gone down there and put a whipping on the Gators. Say it with me. Every day is a great day to hate the Gators. The defensive backfield, the injury situation, we don't know anything about Jordan Hall yet. So that's another issue where those young dudes like Agboko are going to have to show up. He flashed today. He played well today. He's a big body in the middle. His primary role is to clog it up, not be moved against the run, and then let those linebackers do their thing. So he is coming along, and it's nice to see that he does make plays when he gets in the game. But the other guys are just going to have to take on that workload. Talking about Christian Miller, Xavier McLeod, Elijah Griffin, those guys, they're going to have to just keep improving their game, keep coming along, because the Dogs are beat up. They went from being pretty doggone healthy on the eve of this game, right? When you look at the initial and then the secondary injury report for Georgia coming into the Florida game, there were players missing, but only one starter, and that was Kyron Jones. Now we have to hold our breath and cross our fingers, because when that list comes out next week, it's going to look a lot different. I have a feeling. I mean, DeMelo's injury looks like it could cost him some time. Jordan Hall's injury, I'm not sure if it's an ankle or if it's a knee and an ankle, but either way, it looks like that's going to put him a little slow, and he might miss some time. So the Dogs are going to have to do all they can to get well, because again, they will be tested against Mississippi State next week. Remember, last year at home, Mississippi State threw it all over the yard and really put up a bunch of yards on Georgia. That's what it's going to be this week. They're going to do that to Georgia this week. The question is, can Georgia, answer the bell offensively, put up enough points to win the game on the road? Because Mississippi State's going to sling it all over the place. It's going to be a real test for Georgia in a way that maybe most of us didn't think it was going to be. Because when you start losing guys the way we are, this brings us right back into that portal NIL discussion. No one is as deep as they have been in the past. And when you lose guys in bunches, the way it looks like Georgia did today, that's going to show up on the field. So this week, they're going to get a lot of gray hairs, lose a lot of sleep if you're coaching defensive backs for Georgia. For third down efficiency, Georgia was 50%, essentially. Florida was 2 of 11. It didn't feel like that as we were watching Georgia, but they were only 2 of 11 on third down and 0-2 on fourth down. And clearly, those fourth down stops were huge for Georgia. 361 total yards on offense for Georgia to 281 for the Gators. So it's not like they threw it all over the place. But again, keep in mind, they did not have their wide receivers, and then they lost another one during the game. So I'm sure that impacted them a little bit. And if you look at rushing, even with -7 rushing yards in the second half for Georgia up until that drive where they went ahead, Georgia still outrushed Florida 138 to 115. And in this game, the team that rushes for the most yards generally wins. So you can hang your hat on that. Georgia won the rushing game today, and they, did a pretty good job of holding Florida down in the rush game. So that's an indicator of who's going to win. Turn the ball over, that's a sign you're going to get beat. Georgia was able to overcome that today, which is important. That was a big deal. They were just more resilient, and decided. I mean, again, Gunner, that's not on Gunner. That was a tipped ball that hit the receiver's, not a tip ball, but it hit the receiver's hands, and he, should have made that play. He didn't. Turned into a turnover and points for the Gators. So all things considered here, and explosive plays, I don't see that broken out right here, right now. But if we went back and looked, we can figure that out. I would imagine Georgia had the advantage in explosive plays. And it's probably not close. Florida was in it early because of explosive plays, but then in the second half, I think that shifted towards Georgia. So Georgia won the rushing game battle. They won the explosive plays battle. They did not win the turnover battle, but they won the middle 8. And when you win 3 out of those 4, it's a pretty good indicator that you're going to win. And the Dogs could have put 31 on the board today. So if you just look at the basics of what makes football games swing one way or the other, you can look at what Georgia and Florida did today and understand how Georgia gets this win. I mean, you know what they say about statistics, right? Statistics are liars, and you can make them read anything you want them to read. But I think if you watched the game and then you go back and look at how it shook out here, I think it makes sense, why Georgia was able to get this done at the end of the day. Like I said, I expected it to be under 7. I said, if it gets to 7, if it's a 7-point win for Georgia, then I will feel like this was a pretty easy victory. And Gunner did have the opportunity to trot into the end zone there and make it, a wider spread. But that just would not have fit with the game, honestly. That would have been a deceiving final score. I just knew it was going to be close. And sure enough, there it was. If you look at what Georgia has left, there's a Mississippi State game that now looks a lot more challenging than it did Wednesday, right? They went and got their win on the road. They've been this close to a couple of big wins this year. And now with Georgia being beat up the way they are with injuries and given the kind of offense that Mississippi State plays, this is going to be a taxing game for Georgia on the road at Mississippi State, clang-a-clang-a at 11 a.m. local. So, Georgia fans, just get ready. This next week's going to make you pull your hair out, unless you're like me and you don't have any, and then you're going to be like, I don't know, stress eating or drinking or whatever it is you do. Because this one, I expect to be a challenge for the Dogs. Then the Dogs come home and take on a Texas team that listen, y'all know how I feel about Texas. If you don't, go back and watch some of the videos in the past. But Texas, according to X, the internet, is now absolutely back because they beat Vanderbilt by 3 points at home. Okay, so y'all look out. Ooh, Texas is coming. With all that said, I still think Texas has the right to improve just like Georgia does, week over week as this season continues. And maybe that's what's happening for them. I still have real questions about their offensive line, their ability to run the ball when they have to. Frankly, I'm still not completely sold on Arch Manning. The defense is very salty, and that's without their starting safety, who was an All-American. So if they get him back by the time they play Georgia, that game's going to be tough. It just is. So is Georgia still the tougher team mentally? Are they still the tougher team overall? I think so. But don't think that's some Texas team that's going to come in here and not give Georgia everything they want. They will. And then you have Charlotte, which they should win. Then there's the neutral site game against Georgia Tech to end the year. So I said before the season started, I think Georgia was going to lose twice. As we look at the schedule, there's still opportunities for that to happen. I told you now the Mississippi State game, more dangerous than it was. Texas, easily talented enough to beat Georgia. Georgia Tech was the game that I expected might bite Georgia this year just because of the nature of that rivalry. So that's 3 games right there out of the Final Four that Georgia could find a way to lose. Injuries happen. Football happens. So this is far from over. But if Georgia gets to 11-1, clearly they're in. If they stick at 10-2, I still think they find their way into the playoff. But just like every other team, if they somehow mess around and lose 2 out of these last 4, which I don't expect, but if that happens, then you're really playing with fire about whether or not you get into this thing. Again, if you're not new to the channel, you know I was saying, y'all get ready. This is going to be a tight squeeze all year, but that's what college football is now. The SEC is hands down the deepest conference in the country. There's no debate. And when you have to play through this schedule, it's so narrow, the margin of victory. And it takes a culture, a coach, a program, a superstructure like Georgia has to navigate that, and a belief that you're going to find a way to get it done. And just every team doesn't have that. And I think in large part, that's due to the stability that Athens provides in the coaching staff and the way things operate now 10 years in for Kirby Smart, that it really is only matched by one, maybe 2 programs across the country. And that is what they lean on. That and having really good players, no doubt, to go out and get victories week after week. So it is always going to be interesting. And this is what football is. That 2022 season, listen, I know it's good to win, and I feel the same way. But if you just know that you're better, and every predictor heading into the game gives you an 80+% chance of victory, I mean, is that fun? I mean, it's fun because you win, but you're like, yeah, I know we were supposed to win. So this way, you get to see the guys show up and show out and figure out why they, were recruited to come to Georgia, why these coaches are compensated the way they're compensated, and why the Georgia program is different than the other programs across the country, with the exception of 1 or 2, like a handful, are in that discussion with Georgia. And we're talking about programs, not teams, not seasons, programs, right? Those program defining traits are the things that have carried Georgia to victory more often than not this year. This was a good day. I felt good about it because, like I said, I thought it was going to be a tight game. I told you less than 7 would be the score. It turned out 24-21. I love the way that Gunner ended it with the kneel down. I thought that was great. It's glorious. It is both a classy move. It is an intelligent, football smart move to take that knee at the 1 yard line, but it's also a beautiful pinch of salt in the wound. It's a beautiful twist of the knife because he had the opportunity to choose to stop, wait on them to get close, and then take the knee because he's got it like that. You know what I mean? It's both. It's a brilliant football move, and at the same time, it's a little twist of the knife right there for a rival, which is, you know, how I like it. That's good stuff. A little salt, a little pinch of salt never hurt anybody. And twist the knife just a little bit in an arch rival? Absolutely. Let's do that every chance we get because every day's a great day to hate the Gators. Y'all can say it with me. Don't be shy. Today's the day. Shout out to Chauncey Bowens. Happy for that young man that he had the big run there to put the dagger in it for the Dogs. That was awesome. Shout out to CJ Allen. Really good game today. Got after it a little bit. And to the whole defense, right? They didn't do it all the time. But when they had to, go back to what we said about the third downs, right? They held Florida to a very low, I think it was like 2 of 11 on third down, and then they were 0-2 on fourth down. That is because the defense made plays. So you got to give them credit where it's due. Gunner, over 220 yards again with a touchdown pass, or 2 touchdown passes, I guess it was. And he could have had that rushing touchdown. So another great performance by him. The lifelong Georgia Bulldog fan who has only ever wanted to play quarterback for the University of Georgia can now hang this skin on his wall. He's got Tennessee, he's got Auburn, and now he's got Florida. That's a pretty doggone good run right there. The only one left out there among the teams that people might call rivals is Georgia Tech, and he's going to have that shot later this year. There's no telling if Gunner's going to come back or not. He could. We don't know. But if he doesn't, this has been a pretty damn good run for the kid from Tiger.
Told him, how about them fucking dogs? That's what I told him.